What do you do when a powerful race becomes a danger to the entire cosmos? When their numbers and their aggression threaten the balance of creation itself? This is the story of the Nagas, the incredible serpent beings of Hindu Puranas. Long, long ago, they were in such large numbers and they were so dangerous that the creator of the universe, Brahma, had to intervene. He didn't just snap fingers to solve the problem. Instead, he set in motion a terrible, slow-burning curse, a doom that would only come to pass ages later. Rather, manvantaras later in a great fiery sacrifice. So how did it come to this? And was there any hope for the Nagas to escape their fiery fate? Welcome to the Fourth State, and you're listening to K. Harikumar, author and screenwriter. And today's episode, we'll be talking about Brahma's curse on the Nagas. In Hindu Puranas, the Nagas are a race of powerful semi-divine serpents born to their mother Kadru and the great sage Kashyapa. Now, not all Nagas were the problem. Some were incredibly noble. For example, Anantashesha. He was so righteous that he chose to leave his family to perform penances and tapasya. He eventually earned the great honor of becoming the celestial bed where Lord Vishnu rests. His brother Vasuki famously became the rope used to churn the cosmic ocean for the nectar of immortality or Amrita, about which we obviously talked about in the previous episode. But as the Naga race grew, so did their dark side. Some of them became cruel and aggressive, using their deadly venom to harm other creatures and humans for no reason at all. Their actions started to spread fear and chaos, creating a dangerous imbalance in the world. The very beings meant to be the guardians of earthly treasures were becoming a dangerous liability. The problem grew so large that it eventually came to the attention of the ultimate creator, the god Brahma. Unchecked malice of the Nagas posed a threat to all of his creation, and he knew that something had to be done. Brahma came to a decision, and it wasn't an act of simple anger but of cosmic necessity. To protect his creations, especially humans, and to restore balance, he set a terrible fate for the serpent race or the Nagas. He declared that in a future age, a different Manvantara, a great fire sacrifice known as Sarpasatra, would be held by a king of the Kuru dynasty, and in that fire, the unrighteous Nagas would meet their end. This was a judgment designed to control their numbers and punish their wickedness. However, Brahma's plan wasn't total annihilation. He made it very clear that this fiery doom was meant only for those Nagas who had turned away from Dharma or the path of righteousness. The virtuous ones would be spared. But the most important part of Brahma's decree was a prophecy, a sliver of hope buried in the doom. He foretold that when the sacrifice was at its peak, a savior would appear, a sage named Astika, born from the union of a human ascetic and a Nagini or a Naga princess, who would intervene and stop this slaughter, setting in motion a chain of events that would unfold across different manvantaras or ages. The Nagas' fate was sealed, but so was the prophecy of their partial salvation. Ages passed, and while Brahma's ancient decree lingered in the threads of fate, a second, more personal curse was about to fall on the Nagas, and this time it was from their own mother, Kadru. It all started with a bet between Kadru and her sister Vinata. They saw the divine white horse Uchcheshravas, which had emerged from the Samudra Manthan, again about which we have already talked in a previous episode. Kadru claimed that the seven-headed white horse had a black tail, while Vinata correctly said that it was entirely white. The loser would become the other's slave, and that was the bet. Now the horse was entirely white. There was no black spot. So Kadru was desperate to win, and she ordered her Naga sons, the 1,000 Naga sons, to wrap themselves around the horse's tail, making it look black. But many of her sons, including Vasuki and Shesha, being honorable, refused to take part in the lie. Furious at their disobedience, Kadru unleashed a terrible curse upon her own children. She screamed out loud that because they had defied her, they would all burn to death in the great fire sacrifice of King Janamejaya. And this was a repetition of what was said many manvantaras ago by Brahma. Of course, the thing to note is that the curse of Brahma is mentioned in the Varaha Purana, while Kadru's curse is mentioned in the Mahabharata. This curse, born from a mother's rage, tragically reinforced Brahma's ancient plan. In fact, when Brahma heard Kadru's curse, he didn't stop it, seeing it as the very mechanism through which his own judgment would eventually be carried out. The Nagas were now doubly doomed, first by the creator Brahma for their collective threat, and now by their own mother for their individual integrity. Many generations later, the stage was finally set. The trigger was a single act of revenge. There was the king Parikshit, the grandson of the Pandava hero Arjun, was fated to die by a snake bite because of a sage's curse. The fate was delivered by the powerful Nagaraja Takshak. When Parikshit's young son Janmajaya took the throne, he was consumed by a burning hatred for the entire serpent race. He learned that Takshak hadn't just killed his father, but had also bribed a healer who was on his way to save the king. This fueled Janmajaya's fury, and he vowed that he would wipe out every last Naga on earth. And to do this, he called upon the most powerful priests in the land to perform what is known as Sarpasatra, or the Great Serpent Sacrifice. A massive sacrificial fire was lit, and the priests began chanting powerful, irresistible mantras. The final act of this cosmic drama had begun. The Sarpasatra was an event of terrifying power. As the priests chanted, their mantras became a magical vortex, pulling serpents from every corner of the world. From their homes in Nagaloka, from the forests, mountains, and Patal, the Nagas were drawn helplessly towards the flames. They flew through the air, writhing in terror before falling by the thousands into the roaring sacrificial fire. Janamajaya watched, his heart hardened by vengeance, as his priests systematically called out the names of the great Naga clans, damning them to destruction. The fire consumed them, the wicked and the innocent look alike, fulfilling Kadru's indiscriminate curse. But the main target of Janamajaya's hatred, Takshak, he had fled to the realm of Indra, the king of gods, for protection. But Janmajaya was relentless. He ordered his priests to intensify the chants, to create a spell so strong that it would drag not just Takshak, but the entire Swargaloka into the fire. And fearing for his own life, Indra abandoned Takshak. The great Nagaraja, his divine protection gone, felt the irresistible pull of the mantra and began to fall from the sky. Takshak's death seemed just moments away. Just as Takshak was falling toward the flames, a new figure arrived, a young sage named Astika. He was the living fulfillment of Brahma's prophecy, the son of a human sage named Jaratkaru and a Naga princess of the same name. He was the nephew of Vasuki, and Astika, being half human and half Naga, was a bridge between the two sides. Astika didn't use threats. Instead, he approached King Janamajaya and began to praise the power of the sacrifice and the glory of the king and his ancestors with great eloquence. Janamajaya, deeply impressed by the young sage's wisdom and respectful manner, offered to grant him any boon he desired. Now, this was the moment Astika was born for and predestined many, many ages before. Astika made his request. He asked the king that the Sarpasatra be stopped immediately and forever. Janamajaya was trapped by his own royal word. His priests urged him to honor the promise he made to the young wise sage. Torn between his vow of revenge and his duty as a king, Janamajaya reluctantly agreed. The chanting stopped. The great fire died down, and Takshak, who had been plummeting to his doom, was saved just inches away from the fire, along with the few remaining Nagas. Astika's intervention had fulfilled the ancient prophecies. He had saved what was left of the Naga race from total extinction, ending the cycle of hatred that began with his grandfather's death. In their gratitude, the surviving Nagas established a new peace. A belief arose that those who respectfully recite the story of Astika will be protected from serpents, a tradition that continues to this day, especially during the festival of Naga Panchami. The curses of Brahma and Kadru had run their course, tempered by the wisdom of one who belonged to both worlds. So, my dear friends, the story of Sarpasatra is a profound epic about cosmic balance, long-term consequences, and an intricate web of destiny that connects everyone. It shows how even in the face of divine judgment and what seems like an inescapable fate, there can still be a path toward peace and redemption. It all started with the arrogance of a powerful race. It was sealed by a mother's fury and was unleashed by a son's vengeance. Yet it didn't end in total annihilation, but with the compassionate intervention of a prophesized hero. What do you think of this complex tale of curses and justice? Was Brahma's curse a necessary evil? Was Janamajaya's revenge justified? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you found this journey into our Puranas fascinating, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories like this. Thanks for watching. May the Nagas be with you.